Is that an image that you were familiar with? Because so many movies like kind of make fun of that. Like I remember Tropic Thunder has this homage, like kind of shout out scene with it.
That all went. I'm just gonna be honest. That all went over my head, obviously. You're watching Driveby Movies. My name is Blaise.
My name is James.
And never have I ever seen Platoon.
Hell is the impossibility of reason.
Platoon is the 1986 Oliver Stone classic. It's about Chris Taylor, who is a recruit in Vietnam, and he finds himself caught in a battle of wills between two sergeants, one good and the other evil. A shrewd examination of the brutality of war and the duality of man in conflict. This is a movie where I've seen it multiple times. I don't really recall my first experience seeing it. I know I've seen it once in a film class, but I've seen it beforehand on that. But I think it's actually was the best war film ever made until Saving Private Ryan came about. I still arguably think that's the best war movie ever made, but Platoon, I think, though, honestly, narrative wise, I think is the strongest and most powerful one. Like I really do enjoy Saving Private Ryan and stuff, but I think this one just like captures like the horror aspects of it and just like the raw grittiness, and it has a fantastic cast. And this is Oliver Stone. Like whenever I think of him, like this is what I think of and stuff. And I really enjoy this movie. This is one of the few movies that I've seen that you haven't seen. So what'd you think about it, Blaise?
Yeah, it's one of the few that, I've seen not until today. You've seen before, and it's not one that we're both watching for the first time on this show. So that is a little bit of an interesting dynamic. I have to say, yeah, of course I enjoyed this movie. I'm a fan of Oliver Stone. For some reason, this is like one of the films I hadn't seen. And I think for some reason, I always got this film mixed up with The Thin Red Line. I think like the poster maybe was similar at one point in time, and that's why like I hadn't watched it, because I thought it was a Terrence Malick movie. Hadn't watched it. Maybe I'll watch that on. Still haven't seen that movie too, so I didn't watch either Platoon or The Thin Red Line. I know they're both war movies, but yeah, finally watched this movie. Absolutely loved it. I thought at times like it could be a little bit too heavy-handed, too on the nose, but I really appreciated it, especially in the era of like in 1976 when it was released. I think it was probably a really powerful movie. Obviously, we see that it was when you look at the number of accolades that this film achieved and received. It's pretty insane. I think like watching it now here in 2020 or 2021, actually, I feel like the cast is like all-star cast. You have William Dafoe, Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, Keith David, and then some others. I can't remember exactly their names, but their faces, obviously, you recognize the guy from Scrubs.
Right, yeah.
So it's just funny stuff like that where you're like, oh, you clearly recognize people. So it was an awesome ensemble cast that, I could really appreciate this film. I love the writing, especially a lot of the narrative and voiceover work that was in this film, because I really appreciate that when watching a movie, is like when there's good voiceover. I know a lot of people, him and haw about voiceovers, but I felt like this film did it very well. It's like from a writer's perspective on like the thoughts going through that main character's head and how their emotions are, attached to the things that are going on, especially in such a hard time like Vietnam, seeing things that you weren't used to, especially the character of Chris Taylor, who's kind of given up everything. He's I don't know if he was a college graduate, but he's at least a college student at the time, and like kind of volunteered for war when most of the guys that are alongside him in his platoon are drafted.
Right, yeah. And I mean, of course, like so many actors that we can like name off and talk about and stuff, like the familiar faces, but of course like the main character is Charlie Sheen and stuff. And I think this is the only movie that I've actually seen Charlie Sheen in, just in general. Like, what is Charlie Sheen known for other than Platoon and Two and a Half Men? Yeah. And then just being a psycho on like his regular real life or whatever. Yeah.
Tiger blood, dude.
Yeah.
That's what he's known for. Tiger blood.
Okay, right on. Yeah. But like, I'm curious, like also like with, pop culture too, like the image of Willem Dafoe, being attacked from behind and stuff though. Like, is that an image that you were familiar with? Because so many movies like kind of make fun of that. Like I remember Tropic Thunder has this homage, like kind of shout out scene with it.
That all went, I'm just going to be honest, that all went over my head, obviously, but you can clearly see that on the cover of this film. We watched on Netflix, and that's literally the Netflix cover of the movie is like, him in that stance on his knees.
Yeah.
His arms to the side. Like, yeah, that was all lost on me, especially in Tropic Thunder. And I'm sure there's many other parodies of this film where they had that iconic moment.
Right. Yeah. In terms of Vietnam movies, though, also like, I haven't seen too many. I mean, of course, last year we got recently, that what was that one movie that was it, Da 5 Bloods? Is that
Da 5 Bloods? Yeah.
Yeah. We got that one, which was really good, I thought. Then there's also like, I remember the Vietnam scenes in the Twilight Zone movie. And is Apocalypse Now also a Vietnam movie?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen that one, so that's one that you can probably expect me to choose for Never Have I Ever someday. But yeah, like this has always been the standout one for me whenever I think of a Vietnam movie and stuff. Compared to the other 2 or 3 that I mentioned, like maybe Apocalypse Now might be the better. I know that's also a classic, but yeah, just this movie always like I just always thought it like had the perfect like pacing and stuff. Like it's like got action, but it's like horrific action that you're watching, and the drama within it's very interesting. And I love like the arguing that goes down between these 2 sergeants and stuff, just seeing this like crazy side of good and evil, and just seeing the disgusting lengths that they go to like take lead over something that's like, like what the hell are you guys doing and stuff. Like there's a lot of that within this movie.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of kind of, I guess because it took so long for me to see this film, obviously, but it reminded me of essentially, a lot of people said that the film was too, like I was looking up a lot of reviews and like critics of this film, because I would have thought that this film was like somewhat universally loved, but a lot of the critics were saying that it, like everything was just too on the nose. It's like what you think, it's like very mainstream in what you think about Vietnam, like, or what people think about Vietnam or hear about Vietnam or what actually happened to Vietnam, essentially. But I felt like that was maybe necessary. I don't know if the actual like Vietnam War is a bit more complicated than obviously the film intends to tell you, but I don't think it was like trying to explain the Vietnam War. It was trying to explain, the battle of like good and evil, the good and evil of war, essentially.
And within
but Vietnam
our side
was just
too. Like it's not placing like other countries as the villains in this movie. The villains is like, Americans in this movie and stuff. Like, of course, there's good Americans, but like, like I always thought that was like interesting. You don't really see that in other war movies. It's always, like Americans against like whether it's like a Cold War movie against like, Russia and stuff, or like currently we've seen a lot of movies where it's like America against like North Korean terrorists and stuff. But this movie is just straight up, no, like, yeah, there's a war going on, but really the real war is like just Americans fighting each other over stupid reasons and stuff.
Almost the war within oneself. And like, especially Charlie Sheen's character, like how these horrific events are going to affect him for the rest of his life. Like, scenes in which they witness aren't just horrific scenes. They'll be horrific scenes that haunt you forever, essentially. And it reminded me a lot. I had a teacher in high school that was a Vietnam veteran. He would constantly like, I don't know if he was like so shell shocked. Like he was definitely somebody who was shell shocked and had PTSD, but he was like our teacher. And he would constantly like go on and talk about like when we got to the Vietnam War, like it was US history. When we got to the Vietnam War, like I felt like I lived the Vietnam War because of his, like the way that he talked about it. So it's funny because like I felt like a lot of the film was similar to like at least what I knew from like his firsthand experience and what he kind of taught us, because he was drafted and he very much resented that fact. And I feel like the reason that he was like a teacher was almost to like teach us the at least what he believed to be the truth in what happened there.
Yeah.
You know, essentially, whether it's what you believe or not, it's at least what he did, and it was his firsthand experience. So I feel like that's similar to the stance that Oliver Stone's taking. Like, a lot of his film is, you know, interpreted to his experiences in the Vietnam War.
Right, exactly that. That's what I was just going to say. Yeah, apparently it's all based off of his experiences and stuff. So, you know, he's not shying away within this movie. And I think, I don't think any movies are ever going to come close to Saving Private Ryan. But before that, it was Platoon and stuff. Like 1917 was supposed to be the answer. And that's like, I respect that movie for the filmmaking aspect of it. But I think, though, when it comes to like, you know, war movies that capture like the horrific sides and stuff and have the drama there and stuff, like I think Platoon is top notch though and stuff. Yeah.
I will say about 1917 though, only because you brought it up, I think that it did represent some items of intrigue, I guess, about this film, but not as heavy-handed in simple scenes about when he pulls out the fighter pilot and then the fighter pilot stabs like his best friend, like just little there were simple nuances that had very similar emotions and instances that were in this film, but this film was clearly only about those, where 1917 was really a piece that was demonstrating the technical advances in which they could create in film and showing off a lot of the skills of the craftsmen that created that piece. So it's really, for me, Platoon is a Oliver Stone film. Obviously, it's the film that really put him on the map, and it shows his authorship and his he was writing what he knew. You know, he was writing his experiences, whether how much like it was just kind of inferred or it kind of inspired this film, or whether some of it might have been more true than not. So I thought it was really, really enjoyable, especially here in 2021. I love watching this movie and really appreciate this movie for everything that it is. I thought getting this kind of look into the Vietnam War that I feel like I already had, but I feel like everyone should watch a movie like this if they really don't know anything about Vietnam, obviously. Yeah,
for sure. Like, it's a movie that I wouldn't be surprised a lot of people haven't seen nowadays in this current time and stuff. But, for people, like, it's still hailed as a classic and stuff. And I think everyone has that image. They've had to have seen that image some point in their life and stuff of Willem Dafoe's arms raised up in the air. But yeah, this is a fantastic movie. If you haven't checked it out, I'd love to talk about it more. So check it out through our Amazon affiliate link. That's a great way to help us out. Like, watch it there, support the show, come back here, leave a comment telling us what you thought about the movie.
And if you haven't, guys, already, go ahead and smash that like button. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
If you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, we are on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. All our links are down below. Be sure to check all those out. And that'll conclude this week's Never Have I Ever. Tune in next week for a new video.